Welcome to night 3 of the Cyber Pipe Showdown. We are whittling down, melting down the competition. We are going to go from 16 tonight to our 8 competitors. A big shout out to our sponsors, Glass Torch Technologies Moodmats, making this possible. We've got some other folks that we want to shout out, but Raj, welcome back. I'm your host, Eli Harrington. We have got the parole officer of the pipe scene here. I am here with our expert, Raj in Tech. Raj, you are the technology expert. We're going to get into breakdowns today and really go through some of these pieces in detail.
We're going to go deep today.
We're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about technique. We're going to talk about the artistry, the craft. So, especially fun episode for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Big shout out to all of our 16 competitors. 8 left, as you can see, at theburngallery.com. That's where the voting goes down. If you're not registered to vote yet, make sure you sign up there. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook until the wheels fall off and they shut us down for whatever we might say or do here. This is live. So a big shout out to everybody out there in the comments, in the chat. Share, like, subscribe, invite your friends. We're having a blast doing this, breaking this down. Raj, we've had a crazy week so far. We've had glass drops happening online. We've had Instagram live videos. We had North Jersey Diamond Wheel presenting a Captain Crunk interview, Krunkelstein, done by our friend Dabs Dizu. That was awesome. You can actually find that on the Pipe Classic Instagram page. So make sure you're checking those out because we're doing a ton of stuff all week. It's not just what you see here in the studio. It's really about what people are doing out there. So Raj, we're up here in our space station orbiting approximately somewhere between 419 and 421 miles above Earth in our heady rig out here in space. Let's talk a little bit about the voting. We've been watching it unfold. Thousands of votes coming in. What are you seeing, especially compared to last year? Because we're still in uncharted territory. This is not the Pipe Classic. This is the Cyber Pipe Showdown. Pipe Classic will be back. We can't wait. But what have you noticed so far, just in general, from this format, from the voting, what you're seeing from the fans, what you're hearing online, and kind of what we're seeing in the bracket?
Well, what I noticed this time was we either have landslide victories or very, very close contested matches, and not a lot in between.
Exactly. So, we feel like we've got artists, they're out there, they're getting their collectors fired up. People are voting early, they're voting late. And we've kind of seen this. It's been cool because you see the psychology. A lot of votes come in early, a lot of votes come in late. And we're tallying this up going right until the end. So a big shout out to Candle Planners, keeping the tech working behind the scene. Our awesome producers here, Steven and Tyler, making it all happen and look smooth. Speaking of that, we should get into our bracket breakdown, which tonight is brought to us by Mountain Glass Arts. So let's check out our bracket breakdown tonight, presented by Mountain Glass Arts. Raj, I know you know these guys, but let's let them tell us a little bit more about what they are doing. Beautiful. Love to see it. It's Mountain Glass Arts, coast to coast. We know they're down there in North Kakalaki. Amazing facility. I know probably a lot of pipe makers are seeing all that setup and just drooling over all the tech, all the colors. What can you tell us about those folks?
Well, they are one of the most reliable suppliers. I think they're the most reliable supplier. They really take a lot of care to pack their glass appropriately, so when it shows up at your shop, it's not broken. You get a case of broken glass, and that can really mess up not only just, the fact that you spend money on it and it's broken, and then you have to get more. It messes up your production schedule, and it costs you even more money. So I love Mountain Glass for their reliability, their selection, their just top-notch customer service, the fact that they put a lot of love into the community.
Love to see it. Well, and this is part of, especially during the Big C, right? That is a big deal, right? That customer service, people who kind of know what they're doing, keeping everybody going even during these crazy times, right? So part of, just to remind folks who are out there just tuning in, who are new to the Cyber Pipe Showdown, Raj, you can find him on Instagram, Rajan_tech. He is our expert. And Raj, you're going to be doing a lot of the lifting tonight. We encourage folks, sound off in the chat, in the comments there. We're going to go through all of these matchups, and this is our Sunset Lake CBD bracket. You'll be seeing a lot more of them all week. But really, you're our tech guy, you're our pipe maker. So we encourage folks, check it out, follow along, pull up that burngallery.com website as you go along with us on the video here. Check these pieces out, watch the videos from the artists, and without further ado, we'll go ahead and start revealing who won each of these matchups. So, starting on the left side of our bracket, we had Hoobs facing off against Jason Howard. Now, two very different pieces here. Raj, what did you notice from these pieces?
Well, Hoobs went all out here. I think he said that piece was about 20 pounds, and he was I think the last time he was in Pipe Classic was at least 6 years ago. And at that point, he was a very competent glass blower. In that time, he has ascended to such a level that he is almost in a league of his own. He's like redefined what collaboration and construction means within the community. The approach he takes, and in a previous episode, we were talking about how the equipment sets an artist up for success.
Right.
And he customizes a lot of his own equipment to suit his own processes. Can we pull up that first clip of the Hoobs work? So you can see here, he actually cut the bottom of his kiln and put it on a slide out so that he never has to lift that piece up. He can pull it out. He can get all the way around it, work it from so many different angles. And when you're working it this way, you don't have the advantage of using gravity for your benefit. It's always sinking down. So to adjust the way that you're working in order to always anticipate the glass moving in one direction is incredibly difficult. And it's just phenomenal how far he's pushed the technique of networking to the point where it's not even recognizable.
Well, I was going to say,
networking.
It's like you see a piece like this and you want to see what the function is on it, right? Because it just looks so insane, and it looks like a sculpture here.
Yeah.
I also appreciate you talk about that pullout, and you see Hoobs working on it here, up here in the space station behind us. You actually see, I kind of appreciate it because it's like being on a jack.
Yeah.
In an actual auto body shop.
Exactly.
So it's like really spot on all the way.
Yeah, can we pull up that next clip? And so he's using that knife, and in his last Pipe Classic performance, he was using that knife all the time. And what that allowed him to do was basically force the glass to where it needed to go and not wait for the gravity to get it there. And he was able to, throughout his entire build, just shave little seconds off and really get to where he needed to go faster. And he was
really
using it in that clip
technique,
there.
Right? Being able to work this as it's still, being heated up.
Yeah. And in this next clip, we're going to see how well he plans each and every piece so that all the networking connections are hidden. I mean, he's welding right under that seat like a surgeon. It's really phenomenal.
Yeah, this is the kind of piece, and we can't wait for people to be back here in person for Pipe Classic. This is where we're so pumped to have video so that we can actually check this out and see the 360, because you do want to look under the hood, and see how this thing works, see the function, see all of those amazing details. But giving us a sense of scale is really helpful. I mean, like you said, I think almost 20 pounds.
Yeah,
You said when this thing was all done?
And if you were to hold that by hand, your shoulders would be killing you by the end. So this is one of the few ways to really get that big.
Very fresh, very fresh. And then we had the Jason Howard piece.
Yeah, and so Jason Howard, he took an approach that I haven't seen too often. Let's pull up that clip. And you can see here, he mentioned that it was getting too heavy on the handle, and we talked about that a lot yesterday, how the weight of that can just drop the piece off. So he said, screw it, let's just take it right off the get-go. And he's not even just holding it with a glove. He actually let this piece cool down to room temperature, grabbed it right with his hands, and is taking off all his bridges cold. And that can be easy sometimes if you have a thin section, like a networked section or the tip of a horn, but he's doing it against broad-shaped leaves that are up against other broad-shaped leaves. So this was a very risky move by Jason Howard, and it paid off.
I was going to say, again, this is really advanced technique, like you said. You know, things that you just can't do your first week, month, probably year
Exactly.
in a studio.
Exactly.
Being able to kind of get away with this. But that's a big part of what we talk about with this competition, that artists are making these pieces for this competition. There is a time period. It's not as tight as Pipe Classic or some other, in-person shows where things are super limited, but you still are limited by time on top of your materials, expense, all that other stuff. So every second counts, every cut counts, every melt counts, every spot. So great breakdown. I mean, two really beautiful, beautiful pieces, and we love being able to spotlight all of these artists.
Yeah, let's check out that next clip where he actually finishes off this piece. And so now he has it in the kiln, and you can see how difficult it is for him to get close in there, whereas Hoobs was able to get right up in there because he's not being cooked by all that radiant heat. He actually had to buy this crazy hand torch. It's like 12 inches long. I don't know where he got that. Maybe it was mountain glass. And he was able to just finish off the piece there. And so I know personally I've been to Jason's shop, and this is a new kiln for him. And once again, we were talking about equipment, and every artist has to develop a relationship with their equipment. And this is probably the first time he's really pushing the limits of his equipment and being able to use the doors in such a way that he didn't have to before. These scut kilns are really nice. They are specifically made for glass blowing. And the beautiful part about this kiln is that you have two big doors, but then you have a really nice skinny door in the center. So if you want to reach in there just like this, you can have just a nice opening, keep all that heat in there, and still get in there with a little bit of work.
Wow, very well done. And like you said, just on cue. Very cool technology. Again, being able to go inside these studios, see these artists, see these pieces, such an amazing piece, and part of this. So we'll throw the bracket back up here just so folks can see as, again, we move down the left side here. So we had Hoobs faced off against Jason Howard, and as you can see, we had Hoobs taking the win there, moving on to our Elite 8. Our next matchup saw Blossom face off against VT Burrow, and two just amazingly eye-catching pieces here, Raj.
Yes, they both went with that green sort of scheme. Let's talk about Seth first. Seth is more of an up-and-comer, and he really reached to new plateaus here that I haven't seen him reach before. Some of the techniques I really wanted to showcase here was his use of trapped fume, and the disc work that he did was very large, and he even mentioned it was the largest disc he's ever blown. And one of the nice things I like that he does is he almost spins and wigwags streaks of fume. And I really like that about his piece. He had a great concept to it. Unfortunately, Blossom's piece was just out of this world, and she took the win home today.
Yeah, and can we see, do we have that VT Burrow video too? We'll pop that and the Blossom up just so folks can see what you were talking about. I know we've got some pictures here. So this is what you were talking about with this spun fume work, right?
Yes, that gives it that nice space effect. And there's different ways to do fume trap. You can fume a tube and then sleeve it. You can fume the tube and then blow into it. In this case, he went with the blow-in style. And I just really wanted to showcase the flower on Blossom's work and just this incredible sense of artistry. I don't know where she gets it, but when you look at her work, and everyone is really on board with Blossom's glass these days. She's really climbing the ranks in the glass scene. And everybody just, once they see it, they're just like, that is good glass. That is exactly what you want to see.
It's super, super clean. I remember the flower piece from last year. I mean, just so eye-catching that you can tell that, she really has developed this style, in this aesthetic where now people start to see these pieces and they say, oh, is that a blossom piece?
Exactly.
Or they recognize it. And again, a great aspect of this competition being able to showcase all these folks and their style. So again, follow all these people on Instagram. Check out all this work, even if it's not the competition piece. You might be surprised to find out how close these folks are to you in real life and where you can find your local glass shop or how to support these artists directly. So congratulations to Blossom. Moving on, that's going to be a heavyweight battle there in the Elite 8.
Yeah.
Next, we had Punty and Nady Love. And again, really conceptual piece here from Nady Love. Beautiful execution with Punty, a name that we know, from Pipe Classic and from just kind of being an OG. What kind of struck you here?
So the thing that really struck me about Punty's piece and his construction is how thin of a stringer he was using. Let's pull up that clip here. I mean, that thing is, it's like hair thin. And glass is very much like cellophane. And I mean, I'm sure we've all sealed a cellophane bag or two in our lives. It tends to condense back on itself. So being able to actually draw with a stringer that thin without it snapping or pulling back on itself is really difficult. And it allows him to get extremely good details. Something else that struck me about his piece is that the function of it was a little bit next level. Like, you use it and then you pull out the bubble wand and you blow into it. And he mentioned something about bubble dump technology. I'm not sure what that means, if he was referring to the actual function of the piece or that bubble work. But in the world of our pipe making, it seems that the form advances much faster than function. When it comes to function, we get plateaus.
Right.
Every now and again, there's a new innovation, a tie nail. We go to male joints, then female joints, and then 14s, and 18s, and recyclers, and so on and so forth. And it's really hard to come up with a new way for things to actually function. So, props to Punty for coming up with this bubble dump thing. And let's take a look at Nady Love's piece.
I just love imagining, Punty trolling us all here, that bubble dump. We're going to go on Urban Dictionary and find out it means something heinous, and that's what's going to get us kicked off of Facebook and YouTube. So whatever a bubble dump is, Punty, hope it's all right to be talking about on TV.
Yeah.
But love that. And again, we follow up with these artists, so we want to hear more about technique. We'll talk more about it throughout the week. Speaking of technique, again, this piece, just a stunner in the concept.
Yeah, and the thing that, Nady is an expert in many fields, but his colorways that he went with here, there's a lot of times the tendency can be to just hit it with a big hammer, more, bigger, how many can we stack? And sometimes what really stands out is an artist's ability to have self-control and reservation and how they execute those techniques. And I think we see that done really well here with his choice of colors, how much work he put into each section. Sometimes he used spirals, sometimes he used wigwags, and every single jar, the proportions are precisely the same. And that takes a level of self-control and discipline that we don't see too often.
That's a really phenomenal point, especially when we're looking at these in person. Scale is a factor. You see that crunk iguana and you're like, holy cow, that's 3 feet tall, and so it does play a factor when we're looking at and judging these pieces, but more is not always better. And like you said, that balance, the execution, huge factor, and part of why, we saw Nady Love move on in this matchup. So looking at our next and final matchup on the left side of the bracket, speaking of conceptual, KT Scissor Baby and Hensley Art Glass. This KT Scissor Baby piece was one that we had our eyes on, really early on, and we had a ton of votes in this matchup. KT Scissor Baby edged it out by less than 40 votes. We've had a lot of really close matchups, so shout out to Hensley as well. But Raj, tell us a little more about this piece, because it's one we just keep coming back to every night.
Well, the thing I really wanted to showcase about KT Scissor Baby today was her ability to come back from a defeating moment. And can we pull up that clip? And you can see here, she was trying to seal that sculpture to the bottom of her rig, and it got just a little bit too hot, and it started to flop on her. And you know what? She didn't hesitate. Her hands went to exactly the tool she needed. She grabbed it. She recovered. If you get too far into the competition, sometimes you don't have a choice but to just walk away. But here we see she pulled through, and that's a phenomenal performance by the competitor.
And amazing job. Part of this is the videography work and the competitors themselves. Having this on tape is something that's amazing to be able to actually see this highlight, like you said, and see that mastery in action. It also makes you think about the live element when we get back to Pipe Classic and doing this in a gallery full of people, and it's hot and you're crowded and unfamiliar equipment, and all this. But amazing find and shout out, because we saw a lot of other amazing competitors who were disqualified before it started.
Exactly.
Because their pieces didn't finish. Something like this happens, you don't catch it in time, and all of a sudden you're one of these great names here on the bracket breakdown.
Yeah.
So, shout out to KT Scissor Baby. Great spot and piece of video. Great work by our production team here, especially you, Raj, to get that up here. I know we also want to look at that Hensley piece too.
Yeah.
Which is just one of these ones that you could stare at for hours.
Yeah, this piece is loud, and it is just in charge here. And so here's the thing that struck me about his assembly is, let's pull up that clip of the Hensley assembly. He's just grabbing it by his hand, and as you're progressing as a glass artist, the tendency is to work everything hot, always keep it in the kiln, rely on that kiln. But when you can start to step away from that and work sections of your glass while other sections get ice cold to the point where you can grab them, it actually enables a larger realm of what you can do. And we're going to talk about this a little more with that guitar piece later on. But when you can grab it with your hand, the sense of security when you're making attachment is it's much higher, because you don't have to worry about your handle breaking. You don't have to worry about things snapping. You can really manipulate things to exactly where you need it. And I thought that was a great move by Hensley there.
Absolutely. So you folks who are seeing this online at theburngallery.com, you see we're about to move over to the right side. This is our Sunset Lake CBD bracket. We want to thank them again, and also Mountain Glass Arts tonight. We saw that commercial. Maybe we just pop that hype video in one more time. It was so well done. We'll show that again before the end of the night. Before we do that, also just wanted to give another big shout out to Glass Torch Technologies and Moodmats, our presenting sponsor, making all of this possible, putting the fuel in this spaceship to get us up here 420 miles above the Earth's surface to bring you this broadcast. We got a ton of great sponsors who also made this possible. Vermont Cannabis Solutions, Glass Vegas, Glass Alchemy, Flow Magazine, Torch Talk. We see you out there in the YouTube. Thank you for tuning in and following along. Iaso Goods, we've got the Men's Pipe Show, and also Green State Gardener, Fat Guy Edibles, Magic Man, some local homies here in the Vermont area. So, as we move on to the right side of our bracket, we are looking at Jaywalker and Subliminal. We got 4 more matchups to go through, and then we're going to be down to our Elite 8.
Yes.
And then we're going to be down, vote numbers are going to get higher, stakes are going to get higher, audience numbers are going to get higher, competitors who are out of the competition are probably going to be dabbing, getting higher as well. So let's look at this Jaywalker and Subliminal piece, because again, we talk about concepts, and this is one of those ones where, like, I'm curious to see what was going to hit with the audience and hit with the voters, because a lot of this is democracy, what resonates with people. So,
yeah.
Give me a breakdown for this Jaywalker piece, because it's...
Well, I guess speaking of resonating, what really resonated with me with the Jaywalker piece was his color choice. I think he went real heavy with these Molten Aura colors, and they're great colors. They really took a lot of time in the development of those colors to get certain aspects that you really can't get elsewhere. And Jaywalker, he came heavy this year. And it's the thing that really struck me is that it was vastly different from his piece last year. I would have never expected this out of Jaywalker, and I absolutely love what he did. All these little aliens, they just have such a unique essence about them, and they're all doing something in this this beautiful scenery. He did such a good job with this. He didn't just make a mushroom or a piece. He made many pieces and many mushrooms and a whole little world that you can kind of get lost in. I just think conceptually, he just rocked it this year.
I love that, like you said, creating that entire world you can get lost in. And, you know, from a practicality standpoint, having these sets is so neat, you know, especially for people who are collecting and for people who are fans and enthusiasts. You know, it's one of these things where everybody, multiple people can get a piece of this collection, you know, and all keep it, or you keep it all together. But it's one of these series that we've seen, and, you know, we've seen this in competitive pipe making. I think about that Mike Rahman series a couple years ago, you know, that
One of
whole
my
study in
favorites.
black, just amazing. You know, but seeing these sets and people going bigger and thinking about this more as like a whole environment, something we hope we see a lot more of, because you get really, really cool results. Now we had Subliminal took the win in this matchup. Close for a long time. Talk about this piece, because again, just visually stunning.
So this is Subliminal's first year competing, and he brought the heat. I mean, this piece is just phenomenal. It plays into his strengths. Let's check out that clip of him working. I would have never expected this approach to mouthpiecing this rig. He's got like a double Bunsen going under there. He's basically taking off that top with a big hand torch, not just a little hand torch, but like a big burner. And just a very unique approach to mouthpiecing a large piece like that. It's fascinating.
Now again, this is one of those ones where you wanna see the function.
Yes.
Right, and where you want to see the action on it and see exactly what you're doing, because, you know, it's like a part of the art in all of these pieces. That's part of it. How you use it, how you hold it, what you look like when you're holding it, you know, and especially something like, you know, firearms inspired piece like that, right? Like,
and you know, the thing I really like is typically when people make a gun piece, they always make the muzzle the mouthpiece, which is kind of morbid.
Right.
He went with the butt of the gun instead, which, you know, I thought that was super clever.
I'm glad you picked up what I was putting down there, because that I was super curious, you know, looking at that, and it's nice, a little more optimistic, you know, take on the firearms piece. So big shout out to Subliminal. Moving on to our next round, gonna be facing off against Duke's Glass, matched up against Frankie Hess.
Yeah.
And again, we saw very, very different approaches here. There is so much going on with this Duke's Glass piece here on the left. If you want to just take us through a little bit about this, I don't know what we've got for video, but this is one of these ones where you just want to stare at it for hours.
Let's pull up that clip. So sometimes you have an artist that can see something in the glass and bring that out. And other times you have an artist who can see something and then bring that into the glass. And that's what we saw this time. He's got his actual shark jaw there sitting next to it, and you can see how accurately he's been able to bring that into the glass. I personally find that very difficult to do, so I had a lot of appreciation for his ability to do that.
Yeah, this piece, I mean, we talk about things being sort of layered in there, and again, like you said, that video, just brilliant video work, because this is part of the competition.
Yes.
You know, how you showcase this art. So having that there as a visual element, show people exactly what it was being worked off of, and then duplicating it so perfectly is beautiful. Then we talk about all the pieces inside of it. Just a gorgeous piece, and again, the photography is beautiful. You know, now we look over at this Frankie Hess piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot going on here, a lot of colors, a lot of shapes, a lot of swirls. But we also see a sense of scene, which is something we talk about a lot, right? Like, you see action, you see motion.
Yeah.
You know, there's something going on here.
So before we get into that, I want to talk about his actual assembly. Let's pull up his assembly clip. And this thing I really liked is that he has 2 Bunsen's going to keep this whole piece hot. And this brings me back to that equipment side of things. So like when you're trying to keep a piece hot, you can either go the electric route with the kiln, or you can go the gas route with Bunsen's and flames and all these other sort of things. And it really depends on what you're doing and what suits your needs. And in this case, like, you could never keep half of that hot while you're working the other side and spin it. So he went with this Bunsen technique. Not even a Bunsen, but 1 quad and then a single. He just went all out on that, and I love it. And as far as his piece, the thing I really think he brought in here was heart. And as a competitor, that can be extremely potent. And let's pull up that next clip. And you can see that you can really get a sense of the kind of person he is, just in the usage of this piece, very similar to Nady. They're very calm, sound people, and very similar to Nady, he has that ability to have self-control and reservation. And his use of spirals, his use of symbolism, his use of contrasting colors.
Looking at all the detail too, you know, and where the artist applies the detail into what pieces. You know, I like what you said. You really are projecting that sort of environment and kind of get that chillness.
Yes.
You know, and sort of environmental, sort of harmony.
He didn't go on this round, but I think if he stays on the path that he's on and he keeps bringing the heart that he brings, that he could be a Pipe Classic champion one day.
Love to hear that, and again, you know, great encouragement for these artists who get to see who's doing other things out there. You know, I feel like we haven't seen as much UV this year as we did last year.
Well, there was a ton in that McClam piece.
Yeah.
And the more I looked at that McClam piece, there was so many levels to it, and he did actually a very good job in the last couple days posting all the little details about it. So if you want to see all the really cool details about that McClam piece, including the UV, go give him a follow, check out his posts.
Love it. We'll have some more tech talk later on in the week as well, including that interview that you did with Glass Torch Technologies founders down there in Pennsylvania. We were watching earlier. It's nuts. You folks are really going to appreciate going behind the scenes. So love being able to bring the tech behind here. Speaking of which, Tammy Baller, I'd love to give you your full name and read it out here, but, you know, we're on the YouTube and Facebook, at least for a couple more nights. So tonight she is Tammy Baller, Tammy effing Baller in our hearts, and Joe Morrison. Again, just a wild matchup. This is something we were watching the entire time. Tammy is somebody who's super well known in the pipe scene. Has been up here, competed, very distinctive style. We talked about scenes and environments. The Einstein piece from a couple years ago. So much fun. I think about that. And then Joe Morrison, this guitar piece, absolutely insane. You know, we talk about networking more and more as one of these advanced techniques. So what do you see here on this Tammy Baller piece, and maybe bring us through this scene a little bit?
Here's the thing I love about watching Tammy work is that she just shoots from the hip. She has no hesitation about the move she makes, and she just goes for it. And you know, once we're coming back again and again to this equipment thing, and let's pull up that clip of her working. She loves fiber blanket. Every time I watch her work, actually she came by our shop a couple weeks ago, and she brought her torch and fiber blanket. That was like the two main things. And she's constantly using this, and she just like grabs these pieces. She just does not care, and she will just get in there and make it happen. And just her lack of hesitation and complete envelopment in her craft is it's amazing.
Yeah, well, and just being able to just, like you said, jump right in there, be a tactile person, you know, have that confidence. Again, decades as a successful artist, you know, and being so established in the scene, you know, really, really helps that. But like you said, just when you get to watch these folks work and get a sense of their style and personality.
Yeah, I mean, some competitors, you know, they play defense. They're just trying to not let their piece crack. Tammy's playing offense.
Yeah. I like that. And again, I mean, this piece, you could look at this and stare at it for hours and hours. Now, we had Tammy moved on here by a count of 191 to 114. Congratulate her. She's going to be moving on, facing off against Dern in the next round.
Yeah.
This Joe Morrison piece, though, again, one of these artists who you start to see Joe's work around and you know that it's a Joe Morrison piece.
Exactly.
You know, you see not only just the shape and style and the guitar, but the networking work on there. You know, this is something that really stood out. And in Pipe Classic, you know, we have judges' choices too.
Yeah.
You know, so this is one of those pieces where I think gets a ton of attention, rightly so, extremely collectible, not moving on. But, you know, tell us about this piece because, you know, it looks like it just keeps getting more and more detailed and intense.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the closer you look, the more that pops out at you. And his networking skills have definitely got a lot more cleaner since last year. And let's pull up that working vid of Morrison. And so here he really took advantage of being able to switch axis and work out a section of a piece and then make that his handle in order to get the size that he needed to without having to worry about, like we were talking about, your handle breaking off. Because now your handle is part of the piece. It's welded in all sorts of places. And he's able to then work out in the other direction. And that was super smart by him. And the other thing that really stood out, let's pull up that next picture. his use of milli, and I don't think anybody's ever going to.
Wow. This is one of those details you have to see up close.
Yeah, you know, I don't think anybody's ever going to work milli in Pipe Classic to the same level that Crunk did. But to be able to use it so strategically as, they're not frets, I don't know what you call those little
Right.
markers on a guitar, but super well done.
Right, yeah. I mean, on the fretboard, that level of detail, getting into that. Thank you for pointing out that detail. And, you know, shout out to Crunk. We saw him on the IG Live earlier. Yeah, this Joe Morrison piece, one thing that struck me about the clip you showed before, too, just the physicality. You know, I mean, just you can see the weight of that. You can see the size of it, the shape of it, and being able to maintain that focus, that technique and precision, hours on that torch, on that piece, holding it up. You know, it is a tactile, hands-on, you know, rugged pursuit as well as a delicate craft.
Well said.
So, that Joe Morrison piece, congratulations to Tammy. Moving on, she's going to be facing off against Duran Glass. Now, we seem like every round we get a couple of these super tight, you know, matchups here
Yes,
where it's
yes,
like
go
4 or
vote
5
for
votes.
vote.
We're watching here at the very end, so your votes very much count. We are watching these votes carefully right up until the last minute. Voting's open for the next round already, so we'll be coming back here at 6:30 tomorrow night. But Duran Glass just barely edged out Simple Glass, less than 20 pieces here. So let's look at this piece here as we give a shout out. I know we got a ton of folks over here in the chat too. We've got Joey Love. I saw Joe Morrison himself was in there. Congratulations. You know, again, and thank you, Samantha, Jay Walker. Ton of artists in the chat here. Appreciate you all. Raj, what do you think about this Duran piece? Because I've seen a couple other pieces that look like they could, you know, Hoobs looks like it could be towing this.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, speaking of towing, the thing I loved about it is he made the tow for the boat.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, putting the hitch on there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's pull up his assembly video. So he did a really good job just documenting this whole process. You can see how it, you know, it wasn't just here's a quick segment of me melting something. It's like, no, this is how it all kind of came together, and it really shows his you know, love of his hobby, which is going out into the water. He had a great concept of you know, exploring new waters in his actual boat and exploring new waters in his glass boat. I really love that.
And as this video loops back, I mean, seeing the network, there's a frame, there's a skeleton underneath that boat too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I mean, this thing is actually built almost like a birch bark canoe.
Yeah,
almost,
and
right?
a lot of the times when you see somebody working out on a platform like this, they put it on a piece of fiber blanket or one of those tempered pads. And here he just put it on a V-shaped piece of graphite. I don't know if he got that graphite carved specifically for this piece or not, but I kind of assumed that it was a heated piece of graphite and that he was taking it in and out of the kiln, but it looks like he just put it on there cold and was able to work it for, like, you know, minutes on end. That was super impressive.
Yeah, amazing. And again, you know, we talk about this technique and seeing these setups here. The attention to detail, just incredible. You talk about tow hitch, you know, having the hub on the tire of the trailer. You know, I mean, the outboard motor. I wouldn't be surprised if you could pull that thing and it started up. You know, so I mean, shout out. You see why this was so hotly contested, and major props to Duran here. Moving on, that's a piece we're certainly keeping an eye on. Simple, absolutely no slouch. I mean, this piece I think stood out from a lot of the other ones as far as the style and sort of simplicity with complex. So tell us a little bit more about what makes this so unique.
So he went with a chip stack technique, which is relatively new within the Boro scene in terms of, you know, being widely adopted by many blowers. And let's check out his working video. He did this really unique thing where, well, first of all, he has to, you know, pull this milli and cut them all to the same size, which is super time consuming, and it's meticulous work. But after he actually assembled and stacked and melted it all together, he was rolling it on a lap. I haven't seen that before, and that was a super clever move right there in order to get it all uniform, get his wall weights even, get all the crud off the surface from the wet work, and it was a great move.
Well, and this is one of those things too where a lot of folks who are not, you know, pipe workers, glass blowers themselves, wonder how the heck you get these patterns, right? And how this is actually made, and being able to see, like you said, stacking the millis, making these different components, you know, going together, and then they start getting pulled apart.
Yeah.
You know, that actually helps noobs like me, and people who are new to the scene and new collectors who appreciate it, actually understand just what it takes to make that crazy heady pattern.
Both these artists did a fantastic job, not just making a working video, but making it a process video.
Well, and a huge shout out to all of our artists, all of our competitors. I mean, the caliber this year has been amazing. We've got a lot of these artists who are in the chat on YouTube. Appreciate all of you. Big shout out, Joey One, Samantha, KT Scissor Baby, Torch Talk, Carrie, Jay Walker. All these folks are in here. We had Oak in there the other day as well. So again, appreciate all you folks who are watching. Like, subscribe, share the videos. Let's give a little bit of a preview. We don't want to give too much away for what we have the rest of the week. But I just today spoke to a legend in the game, especially someone who's near and dear to our heart here in Vermont, the one and only Hickory Glass. So we're going to have an extended Hickory interview, talk about process, kind of finding voice, a couple OG lot stories as well that are super cool, and really some good advice to other pipe makers, torch workers about kind of sustainability, finding your voice, and how to level up and keep leveling up. So I'm pumped about the Hickory interview. I know you've got an interview with the Glass Torch Technology folks. When's that dropping?
That is dropping on Friday.
Beautiful. So that will be dropping on Friday. We also have another Instagram Live tomorrow. That's going to be with Marble Slinger. Marble Slinger, another legend we talk about, folks who are fixtures here in the glass community. That's going to be going down at 5:30. That's presented by Magic Man CBD, our friends over there in Essex, Vermont, bringing us the delicious CBD edibles. So that'll be going live on Instagram tomorrow. We've got more bracket breakdown tomorrow at 6:30. Voting is open right now, and again, the votes are going to count more and more the more that we keep moving on here. But before we sign off, we want to give another big shout out to our Mountain Glass Arts folks. We know we've got that video. We'll post it up again, and really appreciate you making tonight's bracket breakdown live possible. Sunset Lake CBD, you saw them on the actual bracket itself. We'll be checking back in with them throughout the week. And the rest of our sponsors, Vermont Cannabis Solutions, keeping us all out of trouble here. Glass Vegas, Glass Alchemy, the Flow Magazine, Torch Talk, helping to spread the word, keep the stoke high. Fat Guy Edibles, maybe keeping the stoke a little bit lower, helping us get to sleep after a long night on the bracket breakdown. Green State Gardener, the Min's Pipe Show, EASO Goods. Once again, thank you, shout out to all of you folks. We are going to be back here from all of our folks here at the Burn Gallery, the Canna Planners production team. I am your host, Eli Harrington, for my co-host, Raj and Tech, signing off for the night. As always, thank you for tuning in, and may the best pipe win.